People get awkward talking about their biggest competitor, especially when that competitor is a billion-dollar incumbent with virtually unlimited resources. So let's examine a unicorn startup that didn't just mention their competitor, they made the comparison their entire positioning strategy. And this year, they reached a $5 billion valuation. So most startups do the exact opposite. We avoid mentioning the Goliath because we think it makes us look small. We don't acknowledge their feature breadth because it makes us look behind. We pretend they don't even exist, hoping that buyers, our potential customers, won't think about them either. But the buyers are already thinking about the incumbent. The category leader is the default choice. So pretending they don't exist doesn't eliminate the comparison. It just makes it harder for them to understand you. Today, I'm breaking down Supabase's Alternative Positioning Playbook and giving you the exact framework to decide if this strategy works for you and your market. Because if you're burning through budget trying to differentiate yourself away from an entrenched incumbent, well, this could be your clearest path to reducing customer acquisition costs and winning. Let's start with why alternative positioning works at all. When you are competing against a dominant incumbent, you face a very brutal reality. They've already done all the hard work of educating the market. They have convinced the buyers and your prospects that this product category is valuable and worthy of budget. They've established all the language and the success metrics and the evaluation criteria. You can spend years and millions of dollars trying to create or shift a frame of reference, or you can redirect existing demand that already understands what the problem is. That is what Supabase did with Firebase. Firebase is Google's backend as a service platform. It's the default industry standard because developers know what it does, they know what problems it solves, and most importantly, they already have a big chunk of budget allocated for it. Supabase could have positioned themselves as a modern backend platform for developers or something buzzwordy to try to avoid the comparison. But instead, they leaned all the way in. They called themselves an open source Firebase alternative. It was plastered on their homepage and all of their documentation for years. This positioning answered some very critical questions in the minds of buyers. What is your product? Well, it's a backend as a service, just like Firebase. Who is it compared to? Firebase, the industry standard that you're already using. And why are you different? Well, we're open source and we're developer friendly. But here's what actually made it work. They fully committed. It wasn't just on their homepage. They built product comparison pages. They curated migration support documentations on Firebase. Hundreds of pages across their site are dedicated to helping prospects draw the Supabase versus Firebase comparison. So let me give you the framework so you can evaluate if this will work for you. Step 1, name the giant. When you can explicitly name the incumbent, you eliminate the confusion. You show confidence. You're saying, yeah, we know they exist, and we still think you should choose us for a few very specific reasons. Now, this only works when there is a clear dominant player. If you take more than a second to answer who is the incumbent in your industry, this strategy isn't going to work. So fragmented markets with lots of feature overlap that don't have a clear leader, this is where alternative positioning doesn't work. So an example is marketing automation. You've got HubSpot, Marketo, Pardot, ActiveCampaign. There are dozens of players all bumping into each other with feature overlap. There is no one dominant choice. So this is a terrible fit for alternative positioning. But if your industry has one clear default that everyone knows, well, naming them becomes a potential advantage. You inherit all of their shortcuts. The problem awareness, the budget allocation, the evaluation criteria. You just have to convince your buyers why your difference matters to them. Step 2 is claim your wedge. Supabase focused on something that mattered a lot to a very specific, disgruntled portion of Firebase's customers: ownership and control. They offered an open source architecture and SQL databases, which Firebase didn't. So they weren't trying to lure all of Firebase's customers. They simply scratched at an existing itch and gave a specific segment permission to choose them over Firebase. Your wedge can't be a nice-to-have feature. It needs to be fuel on an existing fire. So ask yourself, is there a segment of your incumbent's customer bases who are actively frustrated by something that's missing? Not like mildly annoyed, They are actively looking for alternatives. The wedge needs to be tangible, it needs to be defensible, and it needs to matter a lot to that segment of the population. So faster, cheaper, easier, these are common, but these are not strong wedges. They are features. A real wedge solves a meaningful problem that the incumbent either can't or won't address. Step 3, prove the difference. Lots of startups claim to be the open source alternative to something else. That positioning breaks down if you can't make it super tangible. Supabase embodied open source in every aspect of their business. Their wedge wasn't just marketing fluff, it was verifiable reality. Your prospects should be able to confirm your wedge totally independent of your marketing. If you claim better performance, well, where are the benchmarks? If you're claiming that you're so much easier to implement, well, where's the documentation on it? If you claim that you're better at support, where are the testimonials? We need to make the wedge so obvious that skeptical buyers can verify it for themselves. Step 4, lower the switching costs. Development tools have enormous switching costs. It's not just about migration, it's team ramp-up time, it's workflow changes, and there's a serious risk to having a migration backfire. So Supabase eliminated the binary choice of stay or go. They encourage developers to start new projects on Supabase rather than migrate their existing work. They provided a lot of free tiers and generous packages to lower the risk of experimentation, and their documentation showed how to run Supabase and Firebase in parallel. Then they activated their community to develop migration tools and reduce the fear of the unknown. And if you've ever tried Supabase, that's how it feels. It's like a low-cost experiment with quick time to value. So remember, status quo means it's always easier to do nothing. Any friction in the form of time, irritation, or risk, that compounds the cost to switch. So you need to be attacking every friction point that you can identify. Now, let's see if this playbook will work for you. The first question, who is the dominant incumbent? If it takes your brain more than a second to answer this, then we need to dig deeper. Because alternative positioning works best when there is one single default choice that buyers already know. If your market is super fragmented with lots of players serving their own small niches, then this probably won't work. It's either too fragmented or you are developing in a new category, and both will require different strategies. Second question, what is your wedge? So let's complete this Mad Lib together. We are like this incumbent, but with this meaningful difference. And then we need to stress test that. Is the difference tangible enough for prospects? Does it solve a meaningful pain for this targetable segment? How hard is it for the incumbent to copy? So get someone outside of your company to check your work here. We are probably biased. Third question, can you prove your wedge? Ideally, you become your wedge like Supabase did. Figure out how you'll embody this concept into your DNA so it's obvious to every stakeholder. It needs to be visible in your comparison pages, your technical documentation, your benchmarks and case studies and testimonials, your feature highlights, your pricing, all of it. A skeptical prospect should be able to verify your wedge on their own without talking to anyone from your sales team. Fourth question, what is blocking switches? List every friction point preventing a satisfied incumbent customer from trying you. So stakeholder approval, team training, migration downtime, integration complexity, contract lock-ins, all of them. How are you reducing or eliminating each one of these? Supabase used migration tooling, parallel run documentation, free tiers for new projects. So what's your equivalent? Alternative positioning is less effective when switching costs are too daunting. So if migrating to you requires a lot of pain or frustration or difficulty or risk, then this strategy has limits. Here's the trade-off you're making though. By positioning as the alternative, you tie yourself to the incumbent's narrative. Sometimes for better or worse. You boom when they boom or when the entire sector booms, but you're likely to stumble when they stumble. And if they pivot, then you're going to have to adapt too. But in exchange, you inherit all of these shortcuts. You get to redirect the existing demand from people that already understand your problem and they have budget so that you can reduce your customer acquisition costs and take advantage of the opportunity. That's how you compete against a billion-dollar incumbent without a billion-dollar marketing budget. There is a full written breakdown with the entire framework and all of the questions that you should be asking in the description, so please use it. And if this was helpful, please subscribe. I am publishing a new growth playbook every week.